Odd house I didn't build. This is the first video in Static 3D's channel, a YouTuber who, a few months ago, began posting increasingly disturbing footage of him playing Minecraft, or something that looked like Minecraft. The first video kicks off with our protagonist wandering around his Minecraft world, which, by the looks of it, seems to be a normal Minecraft alpha version. But right off the bat we see something off. The top left corner indicates this version is called Nilspace. This is also not the first time this name appears because the channel's username is Nilspace Archives. Keep that in mind. After a while of walking, Static spots what it seems to be a house in the distance. He seems surprised and comes closer to it. He comments to not have built it, nor having been near this area in general before. Static walks in and it looks like a relatively normal house. There's a cat, furnaces, a bedroom, and the half door. The glitches don't stop there, because there are some furnaces that are lit yet have nothing inside of them. Inside the bedroom, Static finds two beds and this double chest. The chest contains seemingly normal items if you disregard the smiling face made out of redstone. Static takes some stuff out and leaves the house and approaches what appears to be a mine entrance near the house. Right as Static goes in, we can see the textures of the blocks are all glitched and dark, and may also include the demonic moose. The mine has a chunk of cobblestone, and after Static mines some of it, he notes the flight of stairs that seems to have been blocked off. While going down, there's an abnormally large amount of coal ores on the tunnel walls. At the bottom, Static finds an iron and wooden door. Inside the wooden door seems to be a block hall, but like, way too dark. Static goes in, slowly walking through the dark space until they suddenly fall to their death. The first thing I would like to point out is that this Minecraft is horribly glitched, as seen multiple times. Also, the two bits suggest that two people played together in this world before Static, that is. Who are they? And what does Static have their world? But our biggest piece of evidence yet is the name Nilspace, because it actually comes from a Roblox ARG, Sale Directory. Whoa, I pronounced that correctly in the first time! In the lore, Nilspace is a digital dimension that exists within all Earth's natural electromagnetic waves. It serves two main functions. First, it acts as a purgatory for humans, trapping their mental essence inside and tormenting them. And second, it is where entities are born, from condensed human fear and despair. Static claims to not have built the house exploring this video. Now, if we look at the channel description, we learn that Static obtained both the computer he plays on and the Minecraft version he is using from a yard sale. Now, I really hope I'm not doing a leap of logic here, but in the Roblox ARG, there's a device called the Other Box, which is a computer program capable of translating the chaotic frequencies from Nilspace into a Roblox game. As of now, my best theory is that the computer Static obtained has the Other Box program, and instead of translating the Nilspace into Roblox, it's translated into Minecraft. The second video begins with Static inside a strange looking house. We can note the rain and some of the blocks' textures being alike that of the mine. Also, his inventory has been wiped clean. Walking out, we see an extremely weird setting. Static stands in a stone structure of sorts. Anything beyond that structure is just pure black void, like the one in the hall. Going down some stairs, we enter a very weird looking cave-like system. Wait a minute, the lantern! I'm not talking about the texture, which I know is wrong, but about the fact that there is a lantern in the first place. One video ago, we see this texture for the cooked pork chop in Static's inventory, which has a black outline. The black outline was removed in 1.4.2, which was way before 1.14 when lamps were added. My point, this is not Minecraft Alpha, though the version might be the least of our worries right now. Static finds a book inside a chest and reading it. Okay, there is absolutely no reason to write all this. Anyways, the letters are just scrambled. It says, "I have never wandered so far away from spawn." Why did I do that? I don't want to. I never want to see what could be. And cuts off. Joyful. When Static lifts the book and turns around, we see someone else, seemingly a girl with red hair and a Santa hat. I mean, I guess it makes sense, it was posted in December. The girl also noticed the static and, okay, forget it, she's running away. Based on the chat logs, we can see that her name is Scarlet. After a small moment of Scarlet claiming static isn't real and him trying to calm her down, she seems to touch down the panic attack. We get some info about Scarlet. She apparently spent a very long time here and hasn't seen anyone around. Though I'm not too sure how true that is, and I'm not saying because she's lying, but I get wary of anyone who's friends with a piece of coal. We also learned that Scarlet was one of the two people living in the house from the previous video. We also see Scarlet's house, where there are more of those glitched furnaces we've seen before. Also, I'd like to know that Scarlet has been holding a flower. At first glance a poppy, but it's actually a rose, which was retextured and renamed into the poppy later on. I know this because we clearly see roses near the start of the previous videos. While on the topic of flowers, Scarlet's house in the cave has a retextured rose. It's kind of a rose with a darker texture. Moving on, Scarlet mentions she hasn't wandered too far from Spawn, which lets us know she didn't write the book from earlier. So I'm leaning to believe it was written by the other person he lived with Scarlet. Remember, there were two beds. Static finds a cliff and convinces Scarlet to do parachuteless skydiving with him. He jumps off and the video ends. Alright, before anything, I want to point out that this video's title is Nexus. The definition of Nexus is a link or connection between things or people. This leads me to believe that this dark world is that, a connection between the Minecraft world from the last video and Nilspace. Another curious thing, Scarlet says that she doesn't recall others, but we know someone else was here. Someone who wandered away from Spawn, came back and wrote the book. Maybe they left before Scarlet came here, but we see Scarlet handing Static that same book, so she must have read it, or at least known someone else who wrote it. However, I don't take this as Scarlet being malicious. See, Nilspace is known for messing with people's minds, fragmenting them, if you will. Scarlet could have been lying, or she could have fallen victim to this place's memory tricks. There are also other questions, like why does she have glitch furnaces, or why hasn't she logged off Minecraft? But, to better understand, we must continue watching. We start off in a wooden place, a labyrinth as suggested by the title. Scarlet is nowhere to be seen. Walking through the maze, we can quickly notice the sounds of wood creaking every time Static walks. This could either be a custom sound pack or an entity following Static. Pick your favorite. This video is a little bit repetitive, just featuring Static walking around on the maze, which is realistic, I suppose. We can see a lot of beds, the nice eldritch entity standing in the dark, and the sweet sounds of blocks breaking, letting us know that these entities can most likely break blocks. Joy! After entering a particularly large room, the creaking sounds shift to something like twigs snapping, and then this sequence of events unfold. This sequence of events unfold. After that whole ordeal, Static is rightfully shook, and not long after, the video cuts. Now, this video is actually the only one in the whole channel to have something, an encrypted description. It's encrypted in hexadecimal and reads the following. What was that thing? I didn't get a good look at it. I'm scared. Very scared. This is strange. Not the description itself, that's understandable, but why, out of all videos, is this the only one encrypted? Shifting onto the video itself, there's only one main takeaway from this video. There are entities, and they are most likely not friendly. Also, I'm seeing a pattern. The 2 times Static has fallen into the void, he respawns in a different world. This leads me to believe that these void glyphs are actually a travel method between different parts of this dimension. The video starts in the same maze as the last video, where we learn that Static has been walking for a while after the last video. We get a zoom in on the sign, which I have no idea what it means. Static also stumbles upon this chest, which is actually the same chest from the first video, just without all the good loot that Static stole. We see yet another dark rose. Hey, this is like the 4th rose we've seen. They very likely have a meaning. Static walks out the door into a field. The day is shiny, the grass is green, and the door Static walked out of is somehow shifted into a wall in a matter of seconds. Static is rightfully confused, and also we hear distant walking noises, but he doesn't seem to notice it this time around. After a while of walking into the fields, he finds a oh my god, it's the whale! Does it just seem like a minor detail or a reference? Because Static moves on quickly. Next, we find a fence surrounding a group of flowers, a rose in the middle and dandelions surrounding it. We also find this normal looking tree. After some more walking, we find Scarlet, who's standing over an empty pet house. Charlie's house. Scarlet is sad, Static is relieved, and meanwhile, there's still distant walking noises, so these two are most likely not alone. Apparently, Scarlet also appeared in the house-like maze, but just without the entity trying to kill her. After some chit-chat, the duo resumes to walk into the field. In the next scene, it's nighttime, though you get just confused by more than blindness because there's no moon or star inside. Static decides to gatekeep the idea that another entity might be coming for them, though he tells her in the next scene, when the footsteps seem to grow closer. All of a sudden, the footsteps go from relatively close to right behind you close. They suddenly find a structure and take shelter inside, which seems to have prompted the entities to stop chasing them instantly. After shaking off the nerves and finding yet another rose, the duo explores the structure, though it's mostly empty. Eventually, they find a door that leads to the same, or a very similar, maze from the past video. Inside a chest, Scarlet finds her pet cold body, which confirms that she also got her inventory swiped after jumping. This also suggests that Static's items might be somewhere. Scarlet hits Static over insulting her coal, which by this point doesn't surprise me much. Static finds a book, it's encrypted in a Caesar shift of 9 and reads the following. Every breath I take, every cell that clings to this wretched vessel is stained with my despair. If every drop of tainted blood within my veins were gathered and weighed, it would not measure even a fraction of the pure hatred that consumes me. Joy. We'll get back to this. After Static leaves the book, they encounter seemingly another normal room, but Static's spidey senses drive him to break the carpet, revealing a secret room underneath. In the room, they find a creepy looking tunnel, and Static instantly tries for the door instead, but it seems to have been covered. Okay, if this dude was actually so smart, why wouldn't he just break through the hinges? But it's an ARG. Smart protagonists are a rare species around here, so I'll cut him some slack. I'd also like to note the block placing noises that began right before Static opened the door, suggesting that something extremely close to the door blocked the door after hearing them. Going into the creepy tunnel, there's really not much to see, I noticed this sign in dark, but no matter how much I tried, I couldn't figure out what it said, and every time I tried, I ended up in one of JP Morgan's public records. After exiting the tunnels, we see a new setting, a dark cave, but not long after that, the video cut. One thing that perked my attention from this video was when it was posted. All videos before this were posted a few hours to a day apart max. However, this video was posted 3 whole days after the last one. The roses we have seen multiple times along this video have caught my attention. My best theory, for now, is that they are related, or symbolize, Scarlet. Aside from the fact that they're both primarily red, every time we've seen a rose, it's in a place we know Scarlet has been in Scarlet's house back in Cedric's world, in the caving nexus, in the maze which we know she entered, and in some of the rooms she was in. The only exception would be the fields, where we see the rose surrounded by dandelions. Yes, this could just mean that Scarlet was here, but it could also represent Scarlet, either past or future. But for this theory to make sense, we need to know what the dandelions represent, which I haven't figured out just yet. I'm really curious about the chasing. The moment Static and Scarlet entered the structure, whatever was chasing them stopped dead in its tracks, since the footsteps cut. Why? Are there special structures these entities can't enter? Kinda reminds me of churches, because in many myths and folklore, evil spirits and monsters couldn't enter churches due to its holiness. Another really interesting thing is the book, that leaves us with 3 questions. What is the vessel? Who is in the vessel? Why are they filled with so much hate? But our info might be too premature to make conclusions. Let's check what the next video has to offer. We start off the video exactly where we left off, in the cave-like tunnel. Static points out that the chat cleared again, but this seems to confuse Scarlet. After some pressure, Static explains the game chat, which seems to infuriate Scarlet, who apparently isn't experiencing this the same way Static is. We find yet another flower, and after exploring some rooms, the duo eventually begins walking down the tunnel. After a while, Static tries to break the ice, just to get no response from Scarlet, who seems to have vanished into the darkness of the tunnel behind Static. Fortunately, Scarlet seems to just have fallen behind, and Static quickly finds her again and… Wait a minute, the typing? Scarlet messages are more structured and usually have punctuation and capitalization. Vague responses like these are strange coming from her. Static seems to pick up on this, sharing his suspicion through the unsent messages. However, they still continue going down the tunnel. After a while, they come across an intersection. To the left, a hall filled with bookshelves. To the right, a hall filled with furnaces. In front, the tunnel stretches on. Scarlet says book, probably suggesting to go down the left side, which would have made me go into cardiac arrest. However, Static keeps moving forward, which I think might have been worse. After some walking, they find a couple of floating furnaces. After a while, we see our first slicers in a while, a lamp, similar to that in villages. When Static gets close, the screen glitches, briefly showing what seems to be a message from Static. By the format of it, I'd guess this was in a forum of sorts. This doesn't have much new, it basically points out stuff we already know, like the yard sale, the bugs, and the inconsistencies in the version elements. The video cuts not too long after this. What really interests me is the link up here. This looks like a link, but gives nothing when put in a search engine. However, running this through a Caesar shift of 19 gives an Imgur link. After crying my eyes out trying to bypass the ads, I eventually got a clean screenshot. It's an image of a field during the night. There seems to be a lamppost like the one we just saw, and the text saying, "Where did the days go?" This seems like a cryptic clue, until you notice the very faint text on the bottom. Looking at this, it's easy to see it's the ID of a YouTube video link, but putting in a URL doesn't give anything. However, shifting in the ID by 19 and plugging it in gives a functional link to a secret video titled I Hate You. This video features the same image from Inger, but with changing text. We can assume this is from whoever wrote the book from the last video due to the repeated mentions of a vessel and hatred. Okay, we have a lot to go over. First, Scarlet seems confused at the mention of the game chat. We don't know how she's experiencing all of this, but it's very likely not like Static. Maybe she doesn't see this like Minecraft at all. If we still go by the Nilspace idea, we could theorize that these two are maybe in different positions. Static is using the other box, seeing everything from the perspective of a game, while Scarlet's mind essence could be trapped in Nilspace. This explains her mental state and why she didn't leave the game after potentially years of isolation. Maybe she is seeing this realistically, and when Static types in chat, she somehow hears it. Second point, I believe we can all agree that whoever appeared after Scarlet vanished is not the same Scarlet. Her attitude and typing style are extremely strange. My best guess is that either Scarlet got possessed or a mimic is pretending to be her. The issue with the mimic idea, where did Scarlet go then? But this could actually have an answer. As I've said before, we've seen Static move through walls by jumping into voids. Perhaps it's not about jumping, but the void itself. When Scarlet is lagged behind, and because she isn't in a game with a minimum gamma saturation, like Static, she was enveloped by the dark void, which allowed her to be transported somewhere else, while the mimic stepped in to replace her. I still have questions about the I Hate You video, but the info is still unclear, so let's move on to the next video for now. We start off this video with Static sharing his thoughts about Scarlet's strange behavior. They are still walking through the tunnel. Static arrives at this cobblestone structure. Entering it, Static avoids a path due to its having void. This could mean that he's aware of the void transportation after having experienced it twice. We see this flower, it's not a rose, because we see yellow, and based on the scenery back in video 1 along with the fact that we're supposedly in alpha, we can assume it's a dandelion. We also see a rose and the window to what seems to be a wooden maze. Static finds a chest with a really strange pattern of oak blocks and cobblestone. When Static takes out stuff from the chest, Scarlet seems frustrated. She says desecrate, which means to violate or damage a sacred place. A bit later, we find this burning tree with two signs encrypted in a Caesar shift cipher. The top one says, I'm tired of this cycle, this pattern, while the bottom one has a link to a secret YouTube video titled My Sorrow and Misery, which features the burning tree along with text. We also... Is that a block of coal? She had a single piece. Why am I bothering with this? It's obvious this is a mimic. Scarlet mentions that this place is smart and it breathes, which I don't think helps Static's nerves. He tells her, asking about her pets and time here. Scarlet, or the mimic, gets the questions wrong, which reinforces Static's suspicion. However, Static does a surprisingly simple but smart thing. Nothing. He doesn't know about these entities. What does the mimic want just kill Static if it finds out its cover has been blown? And this is a killing blow. Nope, it's not the fact that it mined cobblestone by hand in less than a second, but it's the fact that it left the coal. Remember, Scarlet hit Static for insulting her coal. This right here is a ribbon on the gift, and Static knows it. After a while, they exit the maze and enter a house of sorts. Static finds a book, supposedly Scarlet's, and he arrives at a bridge. Suddenly, Static has a plan. Static lures away the Mimic and destroys the bridge of support, which seemed to have made it collapse and brought the Mimic down with it. He's over the moon with relief after getting that. Never mind, it's alive. Eventually, Static determines to keep moving, both to find the real Scarlet and to get away from the Mimic, if it can still come back. Okay, we've got a lot to work on. First off, I wanna point out, in the same hall we see the burning tree, we also see windows to stone and wooden rooms. This could represent the different places Static has been in, like the fields, the caves, and the labyrinth. Next, I'd like to talk about the flowers. Stay with me. On the rooms before the giant maze, we saw both a rose and a dandelion. We had already speculated roses appeared in places where Scarlet was in. But this isn't Scarlet, we already stated that, so is this an outlier? Maybe not. The Mimic points out a clue. The door to the maze was open. Someone was here. For all we know, Scarlet could have been transported by the void ahead of Static and has passed through these same rooms already, leaving the door open on her way. In this case, it does make sense for the rose to appear. But what about the dandelion? Well, it could represent entities or unnatural things in general, since the dandelion only appeared 2 times, in one of the rooms an entity was in and in the fields, which we know had another entity. Now, the strange fence in the fields could potentially represent Scarlet being surrounded by the unnatural dimension that is Nilspace. About the second hidden video, it's likely from whoever made the previous one. This seems rather redundant, to be honest. It expresses hate and misery for being bound, but I think I have a good explanation now. The person in misery, the person full of hate, the person chained in this dimension isn't a person, it's actually persons. Or is it people? People who have been trapped in Nilspace and became part of it. In the Roblox CRG, Medulla, the ruler per se of Nilspace, tells to a victim that each code is your nerve. Here's my idea. When people spend too much time trapped here, they can not only become entities, they become part of Nilspace. The souls whose consciousness have been woven into this dimension are watching Static move through them. Static is who didn't hear or care about their messages of sorrow. The links, the books, they're all cries of help to Static, since he's still in the mortal world, using the other box to interact with Nilspace. The video starts with Static exploring a library of sorts, judging from the books lying around. This video is awfully redundant, just featuring Static walking around repetitive rooms with little commentary. Halfway through, Static has something close to a breakdown, wondering his own motives and expressing how tired and stressed he is because of this whole ordeal. A bit later, he comments on what the Mimic mentioned about the breathing walls and the place being alive. This aligns with my previous explanation about the trapped minds, which are likely filling the place with their sorrow. A while later, we enter an open room. There are multiple wooden towers, but one of them is burning. Static finds a book, which is just pure terror put into words. Judging from it, whoever wrote it wasn't yet part of Nilspace, but maybe had been going insane while writing it. Static passes through a hallway of books, and the video ends. I like to theorize on this, but there's not much in this video that I can say without sounding redundant. So, let's instead go on to the next, last, and longest video of them all. Library. The video kicks off with Static entering, for namesake, a library, featuring tall walls of bookshelves that stretch into the darkness of the ceiling. Static spots ladders that lead to bridges, leading him to a chest containing a new book. This book features someone who gave up in fighting or escaping Nilspace. They comment that when they looked into the entity's eyes, they saw fear and isolation instead of bloodlust. They admit that the place has a bizarre beauty to it, and that they now understand the place's pain too well. Static stops to reflect and compares his thoughts to that of the person who wrote the book. Later on, we notice that some of the ceiling planks and lamps are falling apart. While Static is observing the library's features, this happens. Static finds Scarlet, who seems to have been getting guided by a fake Static. Static explains the whole mimic situation, and they both begin walking together. We get this link, which, after shifting, gets us the link to a secret video called Hatred, Sorrow, and Suffering. Hold on to this for a tad and let's get back into the video first. Soon, this happens. The duo seems to have gotten chased down by something. After some struggling, Static pushes Scarlet into a void and quickly goes in too. After a cut, they seem to have ended up in what looks like sewers. The two have a fight. Scarlet is mad that Static pushed her off, while Static is irritated after the whole chase. After a bit, they keep moving, traveling through tunnels and water systems. Something weird happens, since Wo automatically agreed that a seemingly normal tunnel is off by just glancing at it. The two seem to focus on the fact that it's raining, Static commenting that it's been a while since they've seen rain. This is true, the last video we saw rain on was on Nexus, and if we follow the posting stamps, that was almost a month ago. After a while, they recap on what happened to each other after they split up on the case. Static asked what the fake him was asking Scarlet, and she says it said to do a right turn, which seems to make Static realize something. There was no right turn. He's right. Back in the library, Scarlet was heading down a straight path with no turns. However, Static brushes this off and they continue exploring. Soon, the video ends. Now, we just need to analyze the secret video, Hatred, Sorrow, and Suffering. This features the library burning down. It has the same wails of pain as the last two videos, and honestly it's getting annoying having to sit through it cries around unimaginable pain and sorrow multiple times a day. The interesting part is the mention of flaws in the structure. Flaws that wander and are given the gift of choice. We could assume these flaws are Static and Scarlet. Before heading into theory, I'd like to make a small cut to mention the community post. There are 3, all posted after the Alive video. This feature places Static has been in, the library, the maze, and the sewers. These all have faint text, a bit redundant on issues we already discussed, such as the vessel situation and the sorrow. Honestly, I couldn't get much from these, but still wanted to mention them. Alright, let's get into our last single video analysis. First, the book Static found near the start. I'm guessing this book came from the same person who wrote the last book as well, judging by the fact that they don't mention confinement just yet. Now, I really want to point out something about how the entities seem to work. We could separate entities into 2 groups. The ones who attack, such as the noisy creatures we saw say in the library and labyrinth, and the ones who don't attack, like the mimics or heck, even whatever place the blocks of bedrock that blocks Static's way back in the fields. The pacifist ones, however, do seem to have something in common. They want to lead Static and Scarlet somewhere. The one in the fields blocked the door, forcing Static and Scarlet to take the tunnel that landed them in the caves. The mimics were also trying to lead them. The fake Static was guiding Scarlet through the maze, and the fake Scarlet prompted Static to go down the bookshelves tunnel, which could have led to the library. Maybe the mimics did have a goal in guidance, leading them to the library, yes, but most specifically, leading them to the violent entity in the library. Maybe they were trying to feed the entity in the library, because if it didn't eat humans, it could try to eat other entities. And Static did mention that the fake him got scared away by something, the entity of the library, one it couldn't fend off. But maybe it's not just about feeding the entities, but the place itself, the libraries, the fields, the maze, they all have violent entities, and later we see them burning, falling apart, deteriorating. After this whole fiasco, I believe I finally understand the full story. The computer with the other box, aka the Minecraft version, was previously owned by Scarlet and the other person from the house. Now, we need to get into Nilspace lore. One of the owners of the other box, Sean, was manipulated into coding in an extension that removed the security layer of the other box, allowing entities to affect users. Assuming something of sorts occurred before Scarlet and the other person got the computer, it means they had a vulnerable version of the program. After playing in it and building on the surface level of Nilspace, Scarlet began to fall victim to Nilspace. In the Roblox lore, due to Sean's extension, the entities could affect users physically and eventually make them fall into a coma or something similar to then trap their mind inside the dimension. This is likely what happened to Scarlet. That's why she can't exit, and that's why she doesn't just experience this as a game. After Scarlet got trapped, the other owner may have left the computer abandoned for a long time, because as the channel description says, it's old. Eventually, he sold it off in a yard sale to Static. Now, Nilspace acts as a parasite that feeds off human minds trapped in it. After so much time without people using the other box, you could say that the dimension began to dry out. An example of this from the Roblox lore is when an entity, JX1, began growing weak from the absence of a human mind it fed off. The Nilspace growing weak caused it to fall apart. This upset the entities, as we saw the fake Scarlet upset at the sight of the burning tree. Now, when Static arrived and pulled Scarlet out of Nexus, which was the bridge between normal Minecraft and Nilspace, there were two new hosts that Nilspace could feed on. The non-aggressive entities, like the mimics, began trying to lure the two into areas that were actively falling apart to be fed to that area's entities. As we saw, the places falling apart were the labyrinth, the fields, and the library, all which had aggressive entities that likely had to spend a long time without feeding off humans, making their respective areas fall apart, because as said, the entities are part of Nilspace itself. We saw this in two of the secret videos with the burning library and tree, along with the burning tower in Alive. Now, come the explanation for the protagonist's own weird behavior, though this is simple to explain. Using our same logic, the broken other box allowed Nilspace to affect Static and Scarlet mentally, but because Scarlet has spent more time there and is in the dimension itself, she is visibly more affected, as seen with the fact that she is friends with objects to the point of aggression, and makes contradicting statements, like not mentioning the other person we know she played with, or when she claimed to be about to turn right in a straight hall. But the place is also affecting Static as well. We saw him get blissed into trances by rain and wonder on the dreamlike feeling of the place, though this could just be human instincts seeping through as well. And now, for my last point, Scarlet is becoming part of Nilspace. As mentioned before, people who spend too long there eventually get woven into the dimension's fabrics, and we've seen this happening. We have seen Scarlet manifesting physically. The chest, the cat house, the roses, they're all connected to Scarlet, and they have all been manifesting physically in the same world she's becoming a part of. And eventually, Static might be next.